Time for another digital demo. In this one, we're going to be talking about how to paint digitally underneath a scanned line drawing, some sort of, whether it's in pencil or pen, and you've done it traditionally on paper, and then you have scanned it, and now you want to paint underneath it. We're going to talk about how to do that. So first of all, I have this drawing I did a while back of my dog Ted, and this is just a graphite drawing. If you zoom in, you can kind of see, it's a pretty detailed graphite drawing. And you could do something like this for project 5, some sort of line drawing, what have you, scan it, and then paint underneath it. So I have this image scanned. Right now it's just set to the background. What we want to do is put this on its own layer so we can paint underneath it. And the best way to do that is to hit Command A, or select all, which you can find up here, Command A, and you want to cut it out and then paste it onto a new layer. And the easiest way to do that is to just hit Command X, of course, to cut it out. Now it's gone. And then I'm going to hold down Command Shift V to paste it back into its exact place, the exact same place that it was at. And now you can see it's when you go to paste it, it's automatically saved on its own layer. Let's go ahead and rename that layer. If you have line work, you might want to name it line. We'll go ahead and call ours, line work, or you can name it drawing or something like that. So now that's saved. I want to create a new layer for my color underneath. Perhaps we can, you can save as many layers as you want. Maybe this one we will call fur, and that's the layer that we'll paint his fur on, and eventually maybe we can have another layer for his clothes, etc. I'm going to go ahead and lock that layer because we're not using it right now, and we're going to go ahead and I'm going to edit this guy, the line work on top. So again, right now it's a scanned image. It's not the cleanest image. You can see there's lines, pencil marks, etc. We got to get rid of that and clean this up. An easy way to do that is to go up here to Image, Adjustments, Levels, or Command L. And we want to, lighten up the paper. We want to clean up any kind of dirty marks. And this is a quick way to clean things up. So I start out by, this guy is going to control the whites of your, the whitest whites. So we can push that over, and already you can see it kind of brightening up. Maybe we want to push down some of the grays and intensify that. We could do that. And then this guy, of course, controls the black. I don't really like messing around too much with that. I don't want to darken this any more than I have to, but you could mess around with that. Another useful tool is these little eyedroppers here. So you can, first of all, I forgot to mention, you will want to make sure that preview is on. When you turn it off, you can see what the drawing looked like before I started messing around with this. And of course, when you turn it on, you can see what has changed. So make sure that this guy is clicked on, and by all means, you can toggle it on and off to see how it's changed. These eyedroppers are really cool. What you can do is, this is kind of a way to set some of your tones. So like this guy is going to control the white, this guy controls the gray, this guy controls the black. So say for example we wanted, didn't even do that. Say for example we wanted to set all of my whites in the drawing to the white of the paper. So we could click the white of the paper, and that's going to lighten up things. I don't know if I necessarily like that, but we'll leave it alone. You can also click on this the black eyedropper one, and click on, say you wanted all your darks to match, say, the darkest dark of the other darkest darks in this image. You can click on, let's click on a dark part of his nose, and that kind of darkens things up. That's kind of cool. Anyway, let's go ahead and leave this as is. I'm kind of liking how this looks. Let me go ahead and mess around with that white some more. I kind of want to fade out the paper a bit more. All right, let's go with this. We still have some of these lines showing. I'm going to go ahead and get out the eraser, which is, you can just hit E on your keyboard, or of course there's the little eraser right there. Actually, this is set to, oh, never mind, we're good. I'm going to lower the opacity so I don't bleach it out too much, but I'm going to go ahead and erase some of these lines. And just clean up, you know, any kind of little dusties, little blemishes on the paper. Like I want to get rid of that right there. This guy, let's get rid of, I can see the edge of my page. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and lower, I want to soften my hardness. This controls, you know, how hard your brush is. I really want it to be low and very, very soft and feathery so I don't get that strong edge. Let's clean this up. And essentially what's going on right now is I'm just erasing that paper in the background. This is a good way to get rid of, you know, any paper texture that you perhaps don't want to see. Go ahead and erase it. All right, pretty clean for the sake of this demo. I'm gonna go ahead and keep moving forward. You can also, at this point, if you wanted to kind of mess around with the color a bit more, you know, say you wanted a pure black and white image, you know, you didn't want this to be colored at all, because I did scan this as a colored image. You could go ahead at this point and turn it to grayscale. That is another option. And of course I want to maintain my layer, so of course I will hit don't flatten and then discard. And now this is a perfectly black and white image. Sometimes you can mess around with the color of this. Let's undo that grayscale that I just did. We could go into our adjustments, image adjustments, hue saturation. And you can, to a degree, mess around with this a bit. This will kind of change, you know, give you a different hue. And it is kind of difficult to see, and it does get a little bit messy, but, you know, to a degree, you can mess around with this a bit. If you wanted to mess around with the color of your line, it can give you some cool effects. But I don't want to do that. Just another option for you. All right, so this drawing is kind of where I want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this line work. I no longer want to mess around with it. I don't want to touch it. And I, of course, don't accidentally want to paint on it. We're going to go ahead and start painting his fur. So I'll go ahead and unlock that layer, that fur layer. And I'm going to start filling in color. And this is, I've mentioned this before to a lot of you as we got started in digital painting. You know, this is kind of an easy way to break into digital painting. You know, if you're feeling uncomfortable and you don't want to do your line work or draw on the computer, you know, you can do a traditional drawing. You could do this technique for Project 5 if you wanted to. You could do a traditional drawing in pencil or pen. Pen is, of course, going to give you a cleaner line than, say, a pencil would, the graphite. But go ahead and do your drawing in pen or pencil if you want to. Scan it in, and then just color beneath it. So, color digitally beneath it, rather. So this drawing that I've uploaded, this is a fairly detailed drawing. It's not by any means simple line work. It is, you know, it's a graphite drawing. I'm expressing my tone and light and shadow through the graphite. So I don't want to go in and now start rendering. I'm just going to work with flat color. I want to mess around with the local color of Ted. And yeah, by no means am I going to be rendering really at all. I'm just laying a flat color behind this drawing. So in order to do that, we need to set, I forgot to set this, you need to set your line work layer, this top layer. Your line work layer that you want to color beneath always needs to be the top layer. And you want to set this to multiply. And I'll show you why in a minute. Basically, when you set it to multiply, that's going to make any of these white pixels back here transparent. So you're going to be able to see underneath this drawing. If I had it set to normal, you wouldn't be able to see and paint underneath this drawing. So make sure that this is set to multiply. I'll go ahead and relock that, and now we're ready to paint. So Ted is kind of a brown color. He has kind of this, I don't know what his color is called, brindle, something like that. And I'm going to go ahead and use, this is out of character for me, I'm going to go ahead and use a soft round brush. I don't want sort of this harsh edged brush, a hard brush. I want to use kind of a soft brush because he's supposed to look kind of fuzzy. All right, I'm going to go a little bit lighter. And I'm going to start with just the basic shape of his head. I'm going to go ahead and fill him all in. I'm not worried about his eyes or his nose or anything like that. I'm just going to go ahead and fill in his head shape in a solid silhouette. I'm not worried about the clothes right now. I'm going to just worry about his fur, the fur on his head. And again, I am making my brush big and small with the bracket buttons. These buttons are next to, if you have a Mac, they're next to the letter P on the keyboard. And I use those to make my brush big and small. And of course I access the brush through, you can click it on the toolbar or you can just hit B on your keyboard and that'll pull your brush up. Oops, let's redo that. This is why I have my history open over here. Undo that. All right, so his face is filled in already. You know, it's kind of a cool look already. This color underneath this pencil drawing. All right, so again, in my last tutorial, I showed you guys the lock transparent pixels. We're gonna go ahead and set that on. And for those of you that didn't see the last demo, what this is gonna do is this is gonna keep me from going outside the lines. So I, established that main shape of his head in the brown color. And without this on, say I want to go in and bring another color. Now I'm gonna have to work at staying inside the lines. That's a pain in the butt. But with this clicked on, this guy right here, that's gonna keep my brush from going outside the lines. Okay, so Ted, he's getting old. He's got some white on his face. So let's give him a white little muzzle. I'm gonna use kind of a dull, warm mixture, a little bit of blue, that yellow. Let's see what this looks like. I'm gonna go ahead and turn down my opacity. I don't want this coming out of my brush too opaquely. I'll go ahead and lower that a bit. And again, I'm not rendering. I'm not really worried about highlights or shadows. I'm just plugging in color. He's got a little bit of white on his eyebrows. I'm going to go ahead and bring in I'm going to grab this brown again. I kind of want to work with a lighter brown. I'm going to get rid of some of that black. Let's get rid of some of the blue. Let's just lighten this overall. And I want to bring in some light brown tones into his fur. Let's go a little bit lighter. All right. His ears are pretty dark already, but the local color of the fur on his ears is rather dark, so I'll go ahead and give him a little bit more black in there, and we'll come in and darken. Actually, I want to cool down his ears a bit. All right, so some nice fur tones. I could keep working on this. He's got some stripes in his fur. If I wanted to, I could go in and darken some of those and just keep playing with tone. But I think as of right now, I'm done with his fur. And and because my as I said before, because my pencil is communicating shadow and texture, you know, I'm not going to come in here and start painting in fur texture. That's going to be redundant. That's going to make the image overworked. I don't want to do that. Um, let's go ahead and paint in his. We could give him another layer, you know, if you didn't want to keep working on this fur layer and you wanted things to be independent of one another. I could do a layer for his, let's call it face, and maybe I'll use this to paint his eyes and nose with. His nose is kind of a cooler shade of brown, gray. I guess it's kind of a gray tone. Let's zoom in on his nose. Oh, I'm gonna lock his fur so I don't touch that. Let's turn up the opacity a bit. And let's give him some color in his nose. All right. I could use, maybe I'll try this color in his eyes. He doesn't really have blue eyes, but I kind of like how that looks. I'm going to go ahead and lighten up this gray, purpley gray tone we have. And I'm going to use that for, he's got this black sort of, I think it's just the color of his skin right here. I don't like how that looks. That's too dark. Let's go back in the history. Let's lighten, let's bring down the opacity a bit. I just want to reestablish some tone in here. I think that's enough. And I, of course, need to bring back his teeth, the highlights in his eyes. So let's get a light color. I don't want to use pure white because nothing's ever really pure white. Let's bring in like a dull, bit of a dull yellow for his teeth and his eyes. Let's turn up our opacity and we can reestablish his teeth. Maybe the highlight in his eye. He's got kind of two highlights. So if you've lost your highlights, you know, when you went in with the color, you know, you can go back and of course reestablish that. The whites of his eyes need to come back. They're brown right now. Let's use, and again, using pure white for the whites of eyes can give you kind of a creepy result. So we're gonna use, I'm gonna use a gray, cool gray. There we go. He's coming back to life. All right. So what this look is going to give you, it is going to end up looking, if you have a pencil drawing like this, it will give you a look of, you know, someone who's like perhaps recolored a black and white photograph, something like that. It is kind of a nice soft look. All right. Oh, let's do his cigar. I'm going to go with more of an orange so it separates from his skin a bit. Or excuse me, his fur, not skin. And we could do something like that. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and let's work on his clothes. I will turn off this face layer. I'll lock it. And I will make a new layer, and we can call it clothing. Let's give him a, let's do kind of a bluish, light blue-green collar. Let's try this. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this. This is kind of an awkward angle for me. If you're working on a Cintiq, or some sort of drawing monitor, you hit the R on the keyboard and that brings out the rotate tool. I'm going to go ahead and increase the hardness of my brush. I don't want any of those colors bleeding into the fur. And let's give him a, what color should his bow tie be? Let's try a red color. Maybe he'll have a maroon bow tie. Let's see what this looks like. Let's go with it. Again, flat color. I'm not worried about rendering. I'm just plugging in color. He does have polka dots on this tie, so maybe we can lighten those up with a color. You know, if you liked how this looked, you could leave it alone, but I kind of want to bring in some more color to this tie. Let's do yellow. That's a little bit obnoxious. Let's bring it down. Let's darken this a bit. I'm also going to let up on my opacity a bit. There we go. A little less neon. That was a bit obnoxious. All right, he's coming together. Let's do a, I guess we'll go with a standard sort of black top hat. I don't want to use black because that's going to cover everything up. I still want the tone to show through. So let's do a very dull blue. I guess a cool gray. Let's see how this looks. And I will go ahead and turn this guy up. I'll come back and erase that. I'll go ahead and lighten that highlight. Lighten that gray. I'm going to turn on my lock transparent pixels. Let's lower this and let's push that highlight back. There. Ooh. There he is. So after you get done with all your colors, you could go back into your layers individually. You know, say we weren't still happy with his fur, you know, maybe we can come in, let's do Command U, or again, image adjustments, hue saturation. You know, we can play with the hue. He could be a red dog, Clifford the big red dog. Maybe he gets more yellow. I actually like him more yellow. This is more true to his natural hair color. I think I went a little bit too red, maybe a little bit too saturated. I could lower the saturation, a little bit more subtle. Maybe I went too dark. I could lighten him up a bit. I kind of like that. And then same thing, of course, with his clothing. You know, maybe we want to, right now the clothing is all on one layer. Maybe we just want to change the color of his top hat. I could get out the lasso tool, this guy up here. You can also hit the L on your keyboard. for the hotkey for the lasso tool, we can select his top hat, and of course Command U to grab the hue saturation, and maybe we want to change the color of his top hat. Increase the saturation. He could have a purple top hat. I kind of like that. All right. So that is it, guys. Again, this is a technique for if you want to work traditionally, do a traditional sort of line drawing in, whether it's a pen and ink, micron pen, pencil, colored pencil even, and scan it in and then paint digitally underneath it. This is the easiest way to do it. Again, you always want to have that drawing set to the top layer up here, and of course set to multiply. That's going to enable you to see underneath it. I'll show you. If we set it to normal, now it's back on normal. It's opaque. We can't see through it. But once you set it to multiply, that's sort of the best way to go to paint under it. And that's it, guys.